Hi, this is Tutor Joseph from Brainstem Academy. I specialize in teaching chemistry for Cambridge IGCSE, and today we'll be exploring Paper 2 Multiple Choice Extended for October-November 2023 for Variant 2 Paper 0620. Okay, question number 1. Part of a cooling curve for water is shown. What is occurring between points X and Y? So this we see that the temperature remains constant during this during this cooling period. So it shows that it's actually freezing. The freezing point is at 0. So what is occurring between point X and Y? We don't see temperature decreasing. We see that it's remaining constant. And condensation should occur not at this temperature. I would say more towards the hot temperature. And particles are losing heat to the surrounding. So out of all answers, it seems like D is the best out of all, right? Because we're trying to do cooling. So although it is at the same point as the melting point, but the context is for cooling. So it's freezing technically. So during freezing, particles lose heat to the surrounding. Okay, question number 2. Which statements about clean, dry air are correct? So clean, dry air contains a mixture of elements and compounds as of carbon dioxide and also oxygen gas and nitrogen gas. And then it contains only non-metals. Let me think. Clean, dry air. Yeah, it contains only non-metals. Yeah, and it's unlikely to have non-metals. Sorry, it is unlikely to have metals in the air, particularly at room temperature. It's not likely. So out of all, C is the best answer. Okay, next, what is the nucleon number of this atom? So we see that they are in total. So nucleon refers to the nucleus. So we just need to see how many particles are there. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. There's 13 particles in the nucleus. So D is answer. Move on. The percentage abundances of 3 isotopes in a sample of neon are shown. What is the relative atomic mass of the sample? So to find out the relative atomic mass, you have to sum up the mass times the percentage abundance out of total abundance, which is just 100. So you can do that by taking 90.48 times 20 plus 21 times 0.27 plus 22 multiplied by 9.25, then divide everything by 100. So you should get, let's see, we can use calculator for that. So take it. Get 20.19. So B is answer. This one, potassium reacts with iodine to form potassium iodide. Which statement about potassium iodide is correct? So we must know that this is an ionic compound, given that it has a metallic element and a non-metallic element. So it will not share a pair of electrons, as this is a covalent compound statement. And then for B, in potassium iodide, the particles of potassium have more protons than electrons. That sounds correct, but let's just double check other things. So it is not an ionic compound. It has high melting point. So the best answer is B. And it's true. Because potassium is a positive ion, it has more protons than electrons in its positive ion state. Next, which substance has the lowest melting point? You should pick the answer that is a simple covalent molecule. So B is the answer. Graphite and silicon 4 oxide are giant covalent structures. Sodium chloride is a giant ionic compound. Next, the diagram shows the structure of a molecule of ethyl ethanoate. What is the molecular formula of a molecule of ethyl ethanoate? So ethyl, this is ethanoate. So the molecular formula is just condense everything as of how many carbons are there. It's 4 carbons. How many hydrogens are there? There's 8 hydrogen in total. There's 2 oxygen in total. So B is the answer. Moving on, a hydrocarbon contains 85.7% of carbon by mass. What is the empirical formula of the hydrocarbon? So, given as the case, we must know that hydrocarbon is a compound containing only hydrogen and carbon atoms. So, if there's 85.7% carbon, that would mean 14.3% of the compound is hydrogen. So we need to, this is the mass ratio. So we have to convert this to the mole or particle ratio. So simply take these numbers and divide by the mass of individual elements. So divide by that, you get 7.14. This one you get 14.3. So it seems like a 1:2 ratio. So the answer is A for question number 8. Moving on, the formula of a compound containing element X is Na2X2O3. The relative formula mass of the compound is 158. What is the relative atomic mass of X? So 2 times 23 plus 2 times X plus 3 times 16 equals to 158. So to find X, simply take 158 minus 48 minus 46 divided by 2. So you get 32. A is the answer. Moving on. Dilute aqueous potassium chloride is electrolyzed by using platinum electrodes. Which row identifies the product at each electrode? So given that this is an aqueous solution electrolysis, we should get hydrogen at the cathode. Whereas this is a dilute electrolysis, so we should get oxygen at the anode, not chlorine. So C is the answer. Moving on. 11. Concentrated aqueous copper 2 chloride is electrolyzed by using copper electrodes. What happens to the mass of each electrode during this process? So the anode will experience the copper dissociating, or should I say it ionizes. So it should decrease in mass, whereas we should expect to see copper getting discharged at the cathode. We get deposited at the cathode. So we should expect to see the negative electrode to have an increase in mass and positive electrode to experience a decrease in mass. Moving on. The initial and final temperatures of 4 different reactions are measured. Which reaction is the least exothermic? Exothermic, we should see an increase in temperature. So B and C are out. So it's either A or D. So it should be D donkey as of that's having a 4 increase, 4 degrees Celsius increase. These experiences a 6 degrees Celsius increase. Next, which equation represents an endothermic reaction? An endothermic reaction. This is fuel combustion. That's exothermic. This is alkali metal with water reaction. It's going to form flames. It's hot. This is bond formation, which is exothermic in nature. And for A, it's bond breaking as of the molecule is turned into 2 chlorine atoms. So A is an endothermic reaction. Moving on. Methane burns in oxygen to form carbon dioxide and water. The bond energies are shown. What is the energy change for this reaction? So 4 CH bonds in the methane getting broken down. 2 double bond O atoms, their bonds get broken. There's 2 sets of them. And then we form bond formation. So 2 carbon oxygen double bond molecules. So we have, wait, no. This one has 1, so we times 2 only. Then we have 2 sets of water which contains 4 OH. 4 of which. So take the red ones, sum the red ones, minus the sum of the blue ones. So which is 410 times 4 plus 496 times 2 minus 805 times 2 plus 460 times 4. Make sure don't make a mistake. This one you have to bracket it. 410 times 4 plus 496 times 2 is 2632. 805 times 2 plus 460 times 4. That's 3450. So 2632 minus 3450, you get negative 818. So A is the answer. And also this is combustion reaction. If you happen to get an endothermic symbol, something is wrong. So from there you can kind of guess like it's either A or B. Next question. Hydrochloric acid is added to excess calcium carbonate in two separate experiments. Two different concentrations of hydrochloric acid are used, but the temperature is the same in both experiments. The graph of the results shows the volume of carbon dioxide gas given over time. Which row is correct? So we are comparing the one with the higher concentration comparing to the one with the lower concentration. It should have a greater collision rate. But in terms of collision energy, since they are carried out at the same experiment, so same temperature, they should have the same amount of energy in terms of collision. Because increasing concentration doesn't increase the energy of the particles. Moving on. The decomposition of dinitrogen tetroxide into nitrogen dioxide is a reversible reaction. The equation for the reaction is shown. The for reaction is endothermic. Which row shows the effect of the position of the equilibrium and the rate of the reverse reaction when the temperature is increased? So if we shift, it will favor the endothermic direction, which causes the equilibrium position to shift to the right and causing the rate. Rate doesn't matter as so the temperature increasing always leads to an increase in the rate of reaction. So D is the answer. Moving on, in a blast furnace, iron 3 oxide is converted into iron and carbon monoxide is converted to carbon dioxide. What happens to each of these reactants? So iron gets reduced, whereas carbon monoxide gets oxidized. So D is the answer. Moving on, which row describes what happens to Fe2 plus ions when they are oxidized? So given that they are experiencing oxidation, so they should experience an increase in oxidation number, but they should lose electrons. So D donkey is the answer. Moving on, in which reaction does an acid react with base? So a metal is not a base. This is a precipitation reaction. These are salts, by the way. These are salts. These are not bases. These are salts. These are not bases. So answer is D donkey. Although it doesn't seem like it, but it's an alkali. Ammonium has an acidic character. So we're technically reacting with acid with base. So D donkey is the answer. Moving on, 20. Which element forms an oxide that reacts with a base? So it should be an acidic oxide, which can be formed from a non-metal like sulfur. Sulfur dioxide is acidic. Argon is, although it's non-metal, but it's a noble gas. It doesn't form compounds. Next, 21. Which method is used to produce insoluble salts? So we can do precipitation using two aqueous solutions. Moving on. The noble gases are in group 8 of the periodic table. Some properties of the first 4 noble gases are shown. Which row identifies the trends in boiling point and in density as group 8 is descended? So we see the boiling point and the density both increases. So B is the answer. Moving on, 23. In which part of the periodic table is R found? It seems like a group 1 metal. Because group 1 metal is very reactive, they react with cold water to form hydrogen gas. They also form oxides with oxygen, and they have moderately, I would say, quite high melting point, boiling point, but comparing to traditional metals, they are lower. Okay, move on. Which pair of compounds show that traditional elements have variable oxidation states? So if we try to analyze, chromium for both cases have +3, copper for 2 cases has +2, iron for the first one is +3, but for the second one is +2. So C is the answer. For D, it's +2, +2. All right, how do I know? Oxygen tends to carry out -2. You can do the calculation here. Bromine tends to carry out -1. Sulfate tends to be -2. Chlorine tends to be -1. And that's it. So you compare it, then you'll be able to find out the oxidation number of the metals. Next, the list gives the order of some metals and hydrogen in the reactivity series. Metal X is also included. Which row shows the properties of metal X? So given that X has a lower reactivity than hydrogen, it would not be able to react with acids. And its oxide will be easily reduced by carbon as of carbon is more reactive than X, meaning it can take away oxygen from the compound of X. So B is the answer for 25. Move on, 26. When zinc is added to an aqueous solution of magnesium ions, there's no reaction. So which species has a greatest tendency to lose electrons? So since it seems like magnesium is more reactive than zinc, it means that magnesium metal has the highest tendency to lose electrons to form magnesium ions. So 26 answer is E. 27. Which gas in the air is needed for iron to form rust? So there will be oxygen gas. As of rust is hydrated iron 3 oxide. Moving on to 28. Which coating prevents iron from rusting even when the coating is damaged? So zinc has the ability to do that. It's called galvanizing. Other than that, the others, when they're broken, when the barrier is broken, they will cause the iron to be exposed to the air, and then hence they rust. Okay, 29. Why is limestone added to the blast furnace? Limestone is able to react with the impurity found in the hematite, which is silicon oxide, to form slag. It first occur when calcium carbonate thermally decomposes to form calcium oxide and carbon dioxide. These calcium oxide will then further react with silicon oxide to form slag. So B is the answer. 30. The flowchart shows stages in the treatment of river water to produce drinking water. What occurs at J and K? So it will be filtered and chlorinated. Further filtration to remove solid impurities, undissolved solid impurities, and then chlorination to kill microbes. So C is the answer. Moving on, 31. Carbon dioxide acts as a greenhouse gas by interacting with a particular type of energy that radiates from the Earth's surface into the atmosphere. What type of energy is involved and what happens when this energy interacts with carbon dioxide molecules? So we know that it's thermal energy. Thermal energy. And the reason why carbon dioxide is bad for the environment is because it's able to retain and absorb the energy from the thermal energy, causing the earth to warm up. Causing the earth to warm up. So B is the answer. 32. Oxides of nitrogen, such as nitrogen monoxide and nitrogen dioxide, are formed in engines of cars. They are removed from the exhaust gases by reactions in the car's catalytic converter. Which row describes how oxides of nitrogen are formed in a petrol engine and a reaction that happens in the catalytic converter? Oxides of nitrogen are formed when nitrogen and oxygen from the air reacting in the presence of heat in the car engine, not from the petrol. And the reaction that happens in the catalytic converter is by this mechanism, as of nitrogen monoxide and carbon monoxide formed in the car engine are able to interact with each other to form harmless gases like nitrogen gas and carbon dioxide gas. So A is the answer. Moving on to the 3. Which diagram shows the display formula for the name organic compound? A is something weird. It's not ethanoic acid. Actually, it has an extra O. B, it violates the octet rule. Ethene should not have C2H6, but instead it should be C2H4. C is indeed an ethanol, has 2 carbon and has a hydroxyl group. And then D is not methane, but an ethane molecule. Next, what is the total number of covalent bonds in a molecule of butane? So it's this. It's a saturated hydrocarbon. We should expect to see all carbon have 4 bonds. So let's calculate them. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. So 4 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3. That makes 13 covalent bonds. Next, propane react with chlorine in a substitution reaction. Which reaction condition is required for the reaction to occur? So for substitution in alkanes, we need UV light. Next, the structure of an organic compound is shown. Which structure represents a molecule that reacts with steam to produce these products? So to produce a propane 1O, we must have a propene molecule. So D is the answer, where catalytic addition of steam occur to produce propane 1O. 37. Which term describes nylon? It's a polyamide, a synthetic polyamide. Ethene can be polymerized. Which diagram represents the structure of the product form? This is a monomer, ethene. This one has a double bond. After bonding, it's wrong. So it's like this, it should be C. As of we have saturated ethene monomers forming the whole polymer. So C is the answer. That's polyethylene. And 39. An acid-base titration is described. 25 cubic centimeter of dilute alkali is placed in the conical flask, which an indicator is added, and then we add dilute acid until it changes color. The volume of acid used is then recorded. Which use of apparatus is correct? Okay, given that we have a specific volume 25.0 cubic centimeter of alkali, it must be measured by using a volumetric pipette. And the last question of the paper. Substance Q is investigated using the chromatography. The chromatogram is shown, the diagram is not drawn to scale. What is the RF value of Q? So to find Q, we must to find the RF value, we must use the distance traveled by the solid from the baseline divided by the distance traveled by the solvent from the baseline. So that can be done by taking 83 minus 30 this side out of 114 minus 30. So that gives a total of 0.69. 0.69. C is the answer. Okay, that's it for the discussion. If you like how I teach, you can actually follow, subscribe, and like the video. And then if you're interested in joining my classes, you can actually click the link below to join the masterclass. All right, now see you in the next one. Bye-bye.